Kitomari. Of course, we were expecting Jean, but yeah, we've had that. She'll be joining us shortly. Let me just tell you a bit about Salome Kitomari. She's a senior reporter and assistant news editor for Nipashe newspaper. She's a former radio journalist, but now working in newspaper. She has over 16 years experience in journalism and has won more than 10 Excellence in Journalism awards in different categories, including tourism, conservation, investigative journalism, and human rights. She's the chairperson of Media Institute of Southern Africa, that Tanzania chapter, Mr. TAN, that stands for Freedom for Expression, Right and Right to Information. If I can tell you also about Jean, because she'll join us maybe later.
She's
so
joined
her
us,
name.
so you can.
Oh, she has.
Yeah, she has.
Oh, I see her. Karibu Jean. Your mic is muted. We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Zikomo.
That's okay. Jean, I was trying to introduce you. Welcome to the discussion. We've not started. We're just doing introductions. So I was speaking about you. So her name is Jean Chinsamba Chilombo. She's a broadcast journalist, gender activist, and a station manager for Chisomo Community Radio in Salima in Malawi. She's a champion of disaster risk management and produces stories that aim at furnishing the rural communities with information on early warnings through participatory scenario planning that focuses on preparedness and mitigation of disaster in areas that are disaster prone. She has been part of the district civil protection committee in Salima, which looks into issues of disaster management and response. Karibu sana. That means welcome. So as I said, thank you. So as I said, we are discussing about covering disaster risk reduction on the airwaves on radio. If I could also introduce myself, my name is Carol Gatata Moshero. I work for the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. I'm a radio producer. So we'll drive this discussion, and you're all welcome to give your comments and questions. You can do that on the comment section, but we'll have a section or time for the questions and your comments, but you can still post them down there. So if we can get into the discussion, which will take us about 1.5 hours, if we can get into the discussion right now. If we could start with Salome. Salome, you can start by telling us how important radio is as a source of information and news in your community.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Basing on the question, the reporting, community reporting is very important. It's a very crucial reporting where the audience needed to hear from us to get the information that are well packed. And our information should make sure that we are including professionalism and make sure that reporting based on multiple sources from different society groups, and reporting beyond the official agenda by only initiative for the journalists. Also, we should make sure that provision of comprehensive information, which based on reporting under various perspectives, reporting about the root causes of an event, issue or problem, reporting on a historical background of an event, issue or problem, providing various opinion and viewpoint to an event, issue or problem, and providing opposing viewpoints, and that's balanced. Also, we should look on understandability for audiences. Good basic storyline, good structure of the piece, the flow, logic, link, figures in good context. We have to explain data on how it is. Also, the last thing is ethical issues, right to reply for the one who accused, to make sure that we make it clear. So I would like to just go in one by one, which will cover the part of how we are reporting our stories. Why it's important? Journalism has reflected the reality of society and organized the public disclosure. Therefore, it has to report the issue brought forward by the government, company, NGOs, communities, find out about the other topic relevant to press conference or published studies. Sometimes we more rely on the official calendar of the event rather than a deep investigation. For instance, we are doing a story on a certain community on DRR, for instance. We need to dig deeper on what is happened, what were affected, and the solution that's provided. Because sometimes government or may provide a certain or may impose a different solution that is quite different to what the communities are trying to think it's a real solution.
So, hello, Salome. You're breaking off. If you could move to Jean, maybe you can give us your experience. How important is radio as a source of information in your community and your country, especially in DRR?
Can you ask the question again?
I asked how important is radio as a source of information and news in your community? Like if a disaster happens or before a disaster happens, how important is radio to your community in disaster preparedness and reduction? Yeah.
Radio is so crucial in as far as getting information on news or even programs with regards to disaster risk reduction is concerned. Most people in Malawi prefer, okay, I would say most people in Malawi listen to radio much than the print because larger number of population in Malawi are not literate. So whatever they hear from the radio, they take that and put it to use. So it's so crucial in disseminating information with regards to DRR or any other information. So basically what we do here, I work with the community radio station, and this is a radio which is so much close to the people, and we broadcast issues or programs. We produce programs that are community based, because we engage the communities in inputting on whatever we are to produce in every other program that we have. So our point of focus largely is to the people which live in community areas who are in the remotest areas of Malawi. More so, we broadcast to the central region, but we also produce stories or programs that happen in all other districts or regions across the country. We do this with the reason that we believe that lived stories from elsewhere can be emulated or can be assimilated to the experiences that people in the central region where our coverage area is concerned. So if we want to impart a change in the communities that we serve, and we have an example where a certain maybe issue has happened in the southern region of Malawi or the northern region of Malawi, we do that. We also broadcast that so that people within the central region could emulate that and put that into use. Salima district is a lakeshore district in Malawi and also a disaster-prone area. So our programming also encompasses disaster risk management issues, so that we set people to take charge and put into use whatever messages we disseminate to them in order to prevent or to mitigate disasters. So we broadcast programs that aims at we air out air warning systems, whereby we prepare them in advance on what they need to do or to expect in as far as maybe seasonal forecast and anything related in relation to disaster. In terms of COVID-19, we started airing messages about the COVID-19 pandemic way before Malawi experienced any case COVID-19. So this enabled people in our coverage area to know more about the pandemic before it hit Malawi. And when Malawi recorded a case, it took 2 months for Salima as a district to record a case, because people were alert and heard the messages pertaining to COVID-19 more earlier than maybe some parts of Malawi. In as far as the radio is concerned, is so important because whatever is said on the radio, people grab that and put it to you, and it brings so much impact to the lives of the people in the remotest area.
And that's why they say that radio is a very powerful tool. If we can go back to Salome, then she can give us experiences in Tanzania, examples of how they have been integrating disaster risk reduction messaging into their programming. Salome. Are you there, Salome?
Yes, I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to the experience of Tanzania, what we are doing, first of all, we are collaborating with a minister that's dealing with DRR, which the issue of disaster is under the Prime Minister office. And also we are collaborating with the meteorological authority to give the earlier warning every day, and we are getting information from them to make sure that we are publishing in our print and broadcasting media. So most of our audience, they are getting information from different, maybe it's like newspaper, printing, TV, radio, and social media. Yes.
Okay. If I can give an example, also in Kenya, there's a radio station that helps in mitigating floods in Western Kenya, a place called Budalangi, and that community radio station gets information from the meteorological department, and that has helped reduce flooding in that area. So if we can get back to our discussion, so Jean, if you can tell us how you include complex information in your programming on things like climate change, disaster reduction, how do you break it down for your listeners?
Like I've already alluded to the fact that Malawi's large population is illiterate, so our broadcasting is largely in our local language, so that people easily understand what we are communicating to them. So it's 95% of our broadcasting is done in Chichewa, and partly in Yao, because this is the other language that is commonly spoken in this part of in other parts of Salima district. So largely is Chichewa because that's the second the national language in Malawi. And we broadcast most programs in Chichewa so that people in these rural areas understand easily what we are saying. So we work hand in hand with the Department of Disaster Management Affairs in Malawi through the department, through their district office in Salima. So the desk officer for disaster, the desk officer for disaster in Salima is the one who supplies us with information with regards to disaster risk reduction and the management and anything to do with disaster here in Salima. And also there are various, for Salima as a district, we have what we call the District Civil Protection Committee. This is a committee that looks into disaster issues in Salima district. So these committees are in all districts of Malawi. So I will be talking much of Salima because that's where I'm based and that's where I'm so much engaged in these issues. The district has the District Civil Protection Committee, and in this committee has subcommittees in the communities now where we work in. So these subcommittees are called Civil Protection Committees, and they are now changed to village civil protection committees. So what we normally do in these subcommittees are that we train people in these villages so on issues of disaster, so that when a disaster strikes, they should be able to take the leading role themselves before they wait for us from the district to go to the remotest areas. Because some of the areas are hard to reach. So we make sure that we impact them with delightful knowledge or information on DRR, so that whenever they experience a disaster, they should be able to take a leading role, the first steps. And when we are going there to help them, or to bring aid or for response, it should be that they have already started doing much of what needs to be done. So much of the things that about disaster are explained in this, or they are trained. So we train them, and through the Department of Meteorological Services also, they are the ones who supply us or furnish us with a seasonal forecast. So every year they produce seasonal forecast, and this seasonal forecast is broken down to each district, and each district receives exact information about what to expect for that season the year. Whenever farmers are starting, or rainy season is beginning, every district is provided with information, the season forecast for a particular district. So when programming here in our community radio station, we take into consideration that season forecast. We use that season forecast as a point of reference and in producing our programs. So our programs are center much on each now traditional authority in districts. We furnish the traditional authorities respective information about amount of rainfall they are to receive, whether it's above average, normal, or below average, and what to expect in terms of a disaster, in terms of low rainfall, in terms of high rainfall, in terms of floods and all that. So that's how we produce our programs largely.
Okay. Yeah. Before we move to Salome, I would like to know. So, are the presenters and producers in your station, are they people from the community, or are they trained journalists from everywhere in Malawi?
In my radio,
Your radio station.
Okay, in our radio station, we are about 4 who are trained journalists and broadcasters. Most of the people that work here are volunteers from the communities. We also engage youths who have just completed their studies with Malawi School Certificate Education. That's the level. What do you call? I don't know. I don't know what you call it in your countries, but in Malawi we call it Form 4. So when they attain that certificate, we train them on job, on the basics, the ethics about journalism, broadcasting, in the radio production, radio programming, and radio presentation. So we provide them on-job training. And whenever, I'm the one responsible for disaster risk management issues. So I train them with information on disaster issues, so that whenever they're producing the programs, they should have a point of reference. And whenever they are not clear, they ask, and then we train them. So we provide largely on-job training to the people from the community, because we believe in working with our community. So they come forth to volunteer. Yeah.
Thank you. So we can move to Salome, then she can. Sorry, Jean, you were saying something?
No, keep on.
Okay. So we move to Salome. If you can give us your experience in Tanzania, how do you break down complex information in your programming, like for climate change and disaster risk reduction, because it can be complex? How do you break it down for your audiences so that they're able to understand what you're talking about? Your video is okay.
Sorry,
yeah.
Yes, I'm closing the video because of my network is not very strong.
Okay.
Back to your question, the complex information like climate change and the disaster risk reduction, what are we doing to make sure that our audience are getting full information and well understandable information? First of all, to make sure that, I would like to say that most of our audience or our listener and the readers are using Swahili language. So most of the radio programs are run in Swahili, and even the newspaper, we have a number of newspaper which are in Swahili language, so it's easy to understand. And not only that, we are making sure that we are simplifying the message that is going to the audiences as much as you can, and getting people or expertise who will explain those scientific words in a normal language that a lay person can understand. A person who may be based in a village can understand it. Literate and those who are not elite can get the message from us We are working close with Tanzania Meteorological Authority, TMA, to make sure that we are getting the all update and how it is speak. For instance, recently they announced about the coming drought in a different region in our country. So what we did, we just write a story as it is and get some expert who explain in deep what does that mean to the normal community, what measures should them take to make sure that it apply in their daily life. For instance, in Dar es Salaam, several times when it rains, we are getting floods, but through getting the information from our TMA, we are make sure that we are simplify the message to reach them easily to understand what that it means. And we are also working close with NGO that's dealing with direct with the community, because we have a number of NGO that are dealing with the community to help the community and the capacity building to that community. And some of them went far and have a different radio program that they are share with media houses, and the program are produced. So it's easy for the member audience to hear that message and take to action. So we as a journalist in Tanzania, we make sure that we are giving the people what it means and in a simple language that will understand and take action. And several times we are sending our journalists in field to talk to community. As earlier I said that sometimes the community has the solution on the existing problem. So they might have a good reason, or they might have a good point, but they don't have where to say. So the media is there to explain what is their view, what they're thinking, and help the government experts to take action on that issue. So that is my experience as a journalist in Tanzania. I would like to share with you right now. Thank you.
So Salome, if we can continue to the next question. So in case, there are times when it is quiet, times when there is no disaster at all, but you still need to tell your people about early warnings and resilience building and stuff like that. How do you include disaster risk reduction content in such moments?
The time maybe we don't have any disaster like floods, prolonged drought, we don't have the issue that look like that. To my experience as a journalist, what I'm doing is try to write different features, different stories on. We have the 4 priority on Sindai framework. Our people should understand on that. We have the global targets and indicators that are trickled down to our people. We have for instance, in my country, we have the committee that is dealing with disaster, and they are implementing this at the global issue to make sure that it is localized to our level. So people need to understand what is the originate, what measures should be taken before the disaster happened. For instance, we are talking maybe of floods that will come maybe in December. We have to help our people to make sure that they are not building their house where the floods maybe will appear. We have to tell our people on how to make sure that they are preventing the infrastructure that is existing in their places, to make sure that when disaster comes, they will be in a safe side.
Okay. Interesting. If I could ask the other people, the other participants, if you have any question or comment, you can put it to the floor now. Any questions? Okay, so we don't seem to have a question. So then we can move to Jean. Jean, maybe you can tell us what you do during quiet times when you want to give early warnings and resilience building. How do you do that? How do you include disaster risk reduction content when it's quiet without any disasters going on?
Yeah, okay. One thing that came out, I think, was it last year during a certain training workshop, was that most journalists in Malawi only report on issues of disaster when a disaster has stricken. So this was discouraged because it doesn't necessarily review or help in any way to mitigate the disaster. So what we normally do here as a community radio, we broadcast the programs throughout whenever there is a disaster or there's no disaster, because we believe that in every time the information that is imparted to people, it comes out very often and prominent. People put that, keep that in their heads and put that into use. So we broadcast programs. We produce programs on area warning systems. So area warning systems usually need to be known before a disaster has stricken, even when people are preparing for the rain season and stuff. So like this is the month of September. Rainy season in Malawi usually starts from November. Now this is the point when we need to speak much about the early warning systems. People need to know when exactly they need to plant their crops, what kind of crops they need to plant, what kind of farming system they need to engage in, and so on and so forth. Not only that, this also enable people to have information on, like I'll give an instance of COVID-19. Much as we started by airing messages or stories or issues or producing programs about COVID-19 when COVID-19 was not there in Malawi. So that enabled people to prepare much about the pandemic that they were seeing, that in the event that the disease comes in Malawi, they should be able to take precautionary measures and observe all those things and prevent them. So that enabled people in Salima district to be on alert. When the pandemic came in Malawi, Salima as a district was on alert, and everyone had the message, had so much information about what COVID-19 was, how to prevent it, how it spread, and what measures to take in order to contain the spread. So this necessitated us as a district to be able to have zero case for almost 2 months, for over 2 months. Right now, as I'm speaking, we are developing advisories. I think yesterday we had a training whereby we were, not actually training, but a meeting whereby we are developing messages in order to disseminate to communities on the early warning systems in as far as the rainy season is concerned, before the onset of the rainy season. And also, the Department of the Meteorological Services has not yet produced or released the seasonal forecast, but we believe that we can develop the advisories so that we engage the communities now before the rains started. And also we are developing advisories on COVID-19 to step up our fight. I'm proud to report, to notify you guys that as Salima as a district, we have 0 death case for COVID-19. Whilst Malawi now has about 176 deaths, COVID-19 deaths, but Salima as a district, we have not recorded any death so far. So because of that, that has necessitated all stakeholders in Salima district to come together and map the way forward and continue engaging the communities with information on COVID-19. So whenever there is no disaster, we still have to work and find measures on how best we can reach out to our communities with information, finish them with information. Because what the communities need much is the information that should be broken down to the language they understand, or the mode of delivery must be brief and so straight to the point for them to be able to understand and put to use what we are telling them. And also, to community engagement, we need to engage them so that they should be able to own the things that we are telling them, and not just leave it to say, okay, this is the government's responsibility and stuff. So whenever there is no disaster, we still step up our fight or our game in as far as disseminating information on early warning systems, and also building resilience, telling the measures on how best they can come out and prevent any occurrence or outbreak of disasters.
Nice. So that's Jean Chinsamba Chilombo. She's a broadcast journalist, gender activist, and station manager for Chisomo Community Radio Station in Salima in Malawi. Thank you for sharing. So we move back to Salome Kitomari. She's a senior reporter and assistant news editor for Nipashe newspaper. Before that, she was a community radio journalist. So she has a lot of experience in radio. And we are talking about radio journalism covering disaster risk reduction on the airwaves on radio. So Salome, if we can move to you, and now we are talking about solutions journalism. Solutions journalism is the heart of community radio. What kind of solutions should we be looking out for in the context of disaster risk reduction? And if you could give us recent examples of solutions-oriented stories you have done.
Thank you, Carol. Talking about solution journalism, this is the evidence in the most important element in our work. It brings credible evidence to make sure that what we are telling, it has evidence to society and help them to take a certain measure. Sometimes they can prefer to have a certain solution, but we as media, we bring them together with expertise to see how this solution will be helpful to them. So our journalism should not only explain the problem how it is, maybe it's a disaster, maybe it's a flood that happened, but we have to make sure that we are focused on how and why those responses work. So we have to include the response from different parties, as I said, expertise, community themselves, and including document material, as previously I spoke about multiple sources. Those are giving evidence to our stories, and it gives enough picture how the situation is. So the example of a story that I did was not directly on DRR, but it has some element of DRR. I did one story on how the community take measure to keep their environment, to conserve their environment in the one of WMA. It's called the Burunge WMA. WMA are the wildlife management area that are owned by community. So what they did in that area, they just decided, they have 10 villages. They decided to prevent that area. Each village allocates a certain area that will be for conservation, and they come up with the Burunge WMA. So what they are doing, they are making sure that no one is allowed to enter in the forest, no one is allowed to do human activity in that area. And they are getting tourists from different areas, and they are doing picture tourism and a lot of activity, and they have investors. So when you see it, it's a solution because it helps others WMA, because in Tanzania currently we have 32 WMAs. Among them, 16 are active, and 4 are more active because they are getting revenue. For instance, for Burunge, they are getting 2 billion per year. It's a lot of money. And each village, because of that work, they are getting 100 million Tanzanian shillings. It is a lot of money. And that money, they are budgeting themselves according to their priorities. And they are making sure that those money are allocated to build the schools, to build the water infrastructures and the other community infrastructures that are benefit for all community. So you can see how that is the solution. So we as a journalist, we are coming in to tell story on those solutions that the community has brought out, and make sure that this will help other communities. So by telling that story, it means other 32 WMA will take action and do what Burunge did to make sure that they are conserving that area, they are getting revenue from that area, and they are doing their development, because previously they used to donate to make sure that each house is donating a certain amount. So that for them, it was very, very, very problem, because they don't have enough financial to contribute. So we as a journalist, we have to bring out, not only tell the problem, though they have certain challenges, but we have to tell the solution that originated from this community will help them to take more action, and even the government to come in and help the society to move on. That's what I can share right now. Thank you.
Yeah, and just thinking that Africa, we need to tell our people not to cut trees to build gabions and things like that, package little information programs that can enlighten our people and know that taking care of the environment is taking care of themselves, and therefore reducing disasters. I see a comment on the chat section for Jean. Jean, if we can take that comment now, or the question from David Owino. He says, Jean, have you encountered a challenge? Have you encountered the challenge of community indifference to early warning? We see this especially when people realize government is preaching water and drinking wine. If we can take that, Jean. Jean, are you there? Maybe we can go on with Salome, if you can take that question.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. I haven't encountered any challenge of community indifference to early warning, because what the government did, I think, was it last year? If not, in 2018, the Department of Disaster Management Affairs and all other stakeholders, the majority of self-assessment and other CSOs which work on issues to do with disaster and climate change, came together and worked on the communication strategy, which they was meant to be used when talking about issues of disaster management and response. So in the communication, I was part and parcel of the team that went to develop that, or to modify that communication strategy. So that strategy, when modifying, we took into consideration, would say, indigenous ways of developing the messages, or the early warning systems. So in Malawi, there are cultural beliefs. We used to enable people to ascertain as to when exactly they should expect rains, what kind of, or what the rainfall amount they are to expect, the signs with regards to winds, the blowing of winds, and all that. So the indigenous knowledge was taken on board and incorporated in the communication strategy. So when they were bringing out the final paper, the final paper contained both the scientific knowledge and the indigenous knowledge together. So when we are producing now the programs, we also take into consideration that communication strategy and the that were incorporated in the communication strategy. So that enables us, like, okay, the communities to also know that they are the information that they've been having, the indigenous knowledge that they have been having throughout, the part and parcel of they are offering in our programming. So that has contributed to us not having much of the community indifference, as they see us as forging ahead of the common objective, which is to mitigate disasters. How do you draw the line between public service and mouthpiece for authorities? I work for a community radio and not necessarily public service, which is not actually okay. Much largely, our focus is working for the communities. We take ourselves as the mouthpiece to the communities, and not necessarily a mouthpiece for the authorities. So we try to bridge a gap between the people in authorities and the communities in the coverage area that we serve, or in the areas that we serve. So we are largely the mouthpiece for the people and not mostly for the authority. However, we also engage the authorities in order to help them inputting the solutions that are so varied to the people, that are practical and implementable to the people, and not just that they should be formulating policies or solutions that are not applicable to the people or that the people may not welcome them. So largely, we are much of a community service broadcaster and not the mouthpiece to the authorities. I would answer like that.
Yes. Could you give us examples of the recent solutions-oriented stories that you have done on disaster risk reduction?
I'm much into production of the programs and not much of the story of the writing the stories. But I would say for the year, for last year, we managed. As I have already said, we managed to produce programs on early warning systems. So the early warning systems, the programs included or take into consideration all sectors in Malawi and not just the disaster department. So we are engaging people from the agriculture sector, the health sector, the education sector, the environment sector, and all the sectors in government and also in what we call SOs, so non-government organizations. So in the course of production of this and broadcasting of these programs, we aired on the rainfall amount people need to expect in respective traditional authorities or communities. So this enabled people to know what exactly they to plant and what not to plant, because there is a tradition of planting a certain seed that they know they have been planting throughout or for the years they have lived. Now we tried to impart a change. There was some kind of paradigm shift from planting like the traditional way of planting crops or doing farming to a more focused way of planting crops and doing farming, because they were able to get respective information with regards to how they need to plant, what varieties they need to plant, and what not they need not to plant, as to how much rainfall they are to receive in their respective areas. I've also said that Salima, being a lakeshore district, we receive parts of Salima receive more above average rainfall, and parts of it receive low rainfall. So that also has necessitated people to be able to know which varieties they need to plant with regards to how much rainfall amounts their communities will receive that particular year, and also shift to planting crops that will be in tandem with the amount of rainfall they are to plant, so that they are able to have food that will last them for the entire year. And also, the programs have enabled people to be able to, I should say, focus on other or opening up to other systems of farming or systems of doing things, and not just relying on one particular farming. As that, if it won't work, it means that there will be problems for them. So the programs have opened up, I think, people's eyes to other systems of farming and also other ways of doing things. With regards to the areas that they anticipated or they had above high rainfall amount, we advised them to move, to relocate where they would, because there was that threat. So that prepared people to move from their respective areas that they were staying to upper lands, so that they prevent the impact of flooding, event of floods. So suffice to say, Salima, because of those programs, Salima as a district last year did not record a case of cholera outbreak, because every year there is that cholera. We are hit always by cholera outbreak. So Salima last year did not record any cholera outbreak. And also we we do not experience much impact with regards to losing lives and livestock, even property, to disasters when the disasters occurred, because people were already on alert and they knew how much their communities, how much rainfall their communities were to receive, and what best were for them to be able to not to fall victims for disasters. So that those things prevented, I think, government losing funds to things that, or maybe to responding to disasters when the event that they have occurred. And those monies were channeled to other, I think, equally important issues that the government needed to address other than the usual disaster response. I think disaster response, I would say. So I would say those are much of the solutions that we did, but also in regards to stories, I managed to, I think, write stories on the need for journalists to engage communities in producing stories about disaster, and not much relying on those from the central government to furnish them with information, because we believe that much information is with the people themselves at the community. So I would say, I think I would answer like that.
Okay. Thank you, Jean, for sharing. And I think that is also happening in Kenya because of climate change. So farmers have to be told on, the importance of changing farming practices to better suit the climate changes and whatever is going on. So Salome, if we can go to the chat section, Salome, there's a question there that has been put up. I think it has been put up by Duncan or Duncan, depends on how you would like to call him. There's a question on the chat section. If we can look at it now, he's written, how does the community perceive or respond to this information on disasters and early warning? Do they heed the call? Salome.
Yes, they do. Oh, Salome.
Oh, do you want to answer first? You can go ahead, no problem.
Okay. When we were asking how important is radio to the communities, I said it's a very sharp tool, because whatever we say on our radios, people put that into use. So when we broadcast these early warning systems or disaster information, people take heed and put into use whatever information we tell them. They would even provide feedback and seek clarifications whenever they are not clear on something.
Okay. Salome, would you like to respond to that also? Do people heed to what you tell them on radio? Salome.
Yes. Now, currently, I'm working in a newspaper, but at least I have experience of radio, because back years I worked in a radio station. How do community respond? Or they are giving how they are giving feedback to media on what they got from those alerts that's right to them. It's through social media. As you know, right now we have a lot of social media that's here. They can give feedback. For instance, in my company, even in all radio stations that we have, and TV station, they have social media accounts. Those social media accounts, like Facebook, or Instagram, Twitter, they can get feedback from community. And some of the radio and TV program went far, and at the end of the news, they have a question to community. So it's easy for the community to say what they are thinking or what they are getting. So those feedback, if you bring back, you read those feedback, you can get something. That is the feedback. Sometimes if they have a communication with, we are using phone call, because in our paper, even in radio station, they are putting their phone number that the community can reach them. So in Tanzania, for instance, we have a number of community radios. Those are based in regional and district. And we have two of them. They are announcing their program by using a local language. So it's easier for the community to communicate back with media, or journalist, individual, or writing in the social media, or doing a photo story, impact. Maybe TMY announced about, for instance, right now we're talking about the coming drought in different regions. So it's a duty, we as a journalist, to go to those regions, to speak to farmers, to speak to those people based in those areas, what measure they are taking, what kind of crops they are planting right now, or what are the early preparation that they are taking to make sure that they will still exist and continue with their daily life. Not only that, we are getting feedback from expertise. We have different audience because we have scientific, we have those who have knowledge on their farm and a lot of activity. So they are giving feedback to us. That will be easy for the community also to get feedback from expertise. So it's back and forth to all parties. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So anyone has a question, you can raise your question now. Any other participant you'd like to ask a question or give your comment, you're welcome to do so. If not, then we need to move on. If we can move back to Jean, how do you include community-led solutions in your reporting?
The question again?
How do you include community-led solutions in your reporting? How do you package it? Is it in news or what kind? How do you?
Much of the community, I think community solutions are included in our programming, in our programs. When we produce programs, we always open up to feedback from the listener out there. So the listeners always supply us with the feedback from maybe from the previous program they have listened to, and also what they need or what we need to include in the subsequent programs. So we include that we get feedback from them, put it into use through our programming or including it in our programs, and then we broadcast it. So we can be open to the communities to provide us with the information. We also have community listener clubs, which are comprised of people, women, male, youth, and these bring together issues they need to be incorporated in our programs. So much of our community-led solutions are done in our programs and not in our stories. But when we are producing our stories, news stories, we also engage communities, because the communities are the ones who call us whenever there's an issue to be addressed, and then we go get the feedback from them or seek their views and then engage the necessary authorities for that to be, for the solution to be, I think, imminent, or I think to come out clearly to them. I think that's how we do it mostly. We work with the communities, listen to them whenever there is a burning issue that needs to be addressed, and then we engage necessary authorities to address that issue. So that's how we work.
So Salome can also give us a Tanzanian experience. How do you include community-led solutions in your reporting?
Thank you, Carol. How do I include community-led solution in my news stories? First of all, is listen to them when they are giving feedback from what maybe you broadcast, what you wrote. You are getting something, and it's a starting point to include them, because you might go maybe have a solution in what they are telling. I've already given an example of Burunge WMA. I got that tip of news through my to my country for a community with a poor people to build a school. It's not easy for a community to build maybe laboratory, to build water infrastructure, but they are doing. Instead of waiting for the government to come and do that project or to contribute, they are contribute themselves, and they are taking money to the government, because half of 1 billion is going direct to the government, and the rest of them 1 billion is remain in the villages. So you can imagine how much they have. That's the solution. I went to one of the villages among 10. I found they have a balance of 500 million shillings in their bank account. That is normal. It's not normal in our villages, but that is a solution. And sometimes back they got floods in one of the area. It's because they had a conflict between farmers and those who are bringing their cattle to take their cattle to the area. So it's kind of conflict, but the government come in and the other stakeholders, they resolve that conflict. So that also was a solution that will be used in other places that are facing the same problem of conflict between these two groups. Yes.
Nice. So we move again to Jean. How do you usually prepare for your radio shows? Do you have a preferred balance of pre-recorded segments like pre-written scripts and live conversations while preparing? Yeah, if you can speak about that. Then we'll talk about podcast. Jean?
Yeah, I'm on the.
Okay.
How do you usually prepare for your radio show? Do you have a preferred balance of pre-recorded segments, pre-written script, and live conversation? Okay. Normally, when I'm going for my program, okay, presenting the program or producing the program, we use scripts. I use script. I normally write script down on a particular issue or topic I want to discuss in that particular program. So if it's a theme about early warning systems, I will have a script on early warning systems. So like I'm privileged to get much of the information from that committee with regards to DRR, and also some sectors of government also furnish me with information when it's an issue pertaining to that respective sector. So usually I would prepare a script in advance for that, and whether it's a live program or well in advance.
Jean, you seem to be having a problem maybe with your network. We can hear you, but you're breaking a bit.
Okay. I think you should close the video. That's why I did it.
Yeah. Could we move on to podcast for you, Jean? Could you tell us your experience with preparing podcasts? Is it much different with a live conversation?
Not much, but of course, I don't do much of broadcasting, but the preparation is still the same. It's not that large, or there is no much difference. So we don't do much of broadcasting here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Salome, what is your experience? When you were on radio, were you usually preparing for your radio shows with pre-recorded segments and pre-written scripts, or how are you doing it on live conversation? Yeah.
Thank you, Carol, because I worked in the radio, it's like 14 years ago. It's not nearby, but I have a lot of experience in printing, which sometimes it cuts across to radio and the TV. Let me tell you what I'm doing before going to the field. First of all is searching to make sure that I'm doing a ground investigation. How do I do the ground investigation? Through reading. I will go to different websites of different organizations that are dealing with what I'm doing. And I will read a lot of information and note down which information do I really need to go in deep. And I will also search information in Google. Google is helpful when it comes to information. So I'll make sure that I'm okay and I'm full enough on ground investigation. And then I will start mapping my story. Mapping my story is to make sure that I know the source from the scratch to the national level, because I want to include all voices. I want gender balance in my reporting. So I will make sure that I'm mapping my story. I will navigate through where I want to get all the information that will help to build a good piece of story. And also I'll make sure that I record it. Most of the time I'm using my phone to take a small video for pictures, still pictures, because also I'm doing multimedia journalism to post in our website to get those audience in multimedia, in a social media. So another one is to make sure that I'm getting sources from government and to have a clear perspective. If my story is maybe it might be economic, it might be security, it might be depending on it might be maybe financial. So from the beginning, I must have a clear picture of what I'm doing. And then after going to field, I will come back and go back to my materials and see where I'm full of and where it's not enough. And then I will start maybe fetching other material to make sure that what I'm writing is what I wanted or what is needed for the audience to get from our media house, because we have digital media, we have printing, and we have a privilege because our company has TV and radio, though I'm now based on a newspaper. That's what I can say right now, Carol, please.
Nice. Thank you for sharing your experience. I'm sure someone has learned something. If I could also share mine, what we do when we have recorded programs, once they run on air, we pick up the recorded programs and we share as podcasts. We share them on our podcast channels and on the station's website and channels for podcasts. So yeah, if we can move on, unless someone has a question or a comment. Anyone with a question? If not, then we can continue. How does writing for radio differ from writing for print, the web, or video scripts? Salome, maybe you'd like to start on that.
Pardon, can you repeat the question, please?
How does writing for radio differ from writing for print, the web, or video scripting?
Oh, thank you, Carol.
Mm-hmm.
Writing for radio is quite different writing for printing. Writing for radio, it needs sound, it needs some reality to show. Maybe you are talking about, you are in the forest. People would like to hear those sound bites, to hear how that forest it sound that you are, maybe you are saying, now I'm going to, they will like to hear or to see what you are doing. But for printing, it's easy because sometimes you can do an interview through phone. Sometimes you can, it's easy, you take a picture and it's over. You just need more information. But writing for radio is just, it's not a long text compared to printing. Printing, sometimes I'm writing more than 3,000 words. Maybe it's a series, 5-day series. It's a long series compared to the radio where you just cue in, cue out for the information you have. So for me, what I'm doing, because right now I'm working with the print, is as I said, how do I prepare my material before going to the field? searching information, making sure, because I love to write my text and having a text multimedia story, which will include a text, will include a short video that is well understood, a certain message. Maybe I want this message to pass through my audiences. So I will have even pictures that show reality. And when it came to a newspaper, I would love to have maybe 2-3 photos that show the reality. They're saying action photos that speak 10,000 words. So that's what I'm doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We need to start ending this discussion. And what I get from all this is that feedback from the community is very important on disaster risk reduction. So unless someone has a comment or a question, and unless Salome and Jean have final remarks, then we might need to end this discussion. Anyone with a comment? So thank you everyone for turning up for this discussion. We were talking about radio journalism covering disaster risk reduction on the airwaves. I'm wishing everyone all the best in covering, in writing your stories and packaging your stories. My name is Carol Gatata-Moshero. I work for the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. I thank Biraj for this opportunity to moderate this meeting. And back to Duncan. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Okay, thank you, Carol.
Yeah, the discussion has been quite interesting. Thank you for those who are able to join us. We will definitely package this webinar and have it on our YouTube page, and then share it on our social media platforms for the rest of the members who are not able to join us. So thank you so much. Let's keep on engaging. Let's keep on having this discussion, and we hope to see you again soon. So thank you, Carol. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Salome. And I would like to wish everyone a pleasant day and a restful weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you also.
Hey.